Ay, ay, ay. Okay. Well, that was fun. Yeah, I wish I had alternative options for ISP, but I don't. It's great, let me tell you. Anyways, so we're back. I'll give people another like minute or two to get over here, but yeah. What can you do? This is one of those like very few times I wish I streamed on Twitch, just because it's so much easier to recover from a stream error on Twitch than it is on YouTube. Because for YouTube, when you want to stream, you pretty much have to tell it like, hey, I'm going to be streaming from some external software. Here's the information. Here's when the stream's going to start. And it's like, all right, cool. Just send us a stream when you're ready. But the second that stream cuts out for a few seconds, YouTube goes, aight, you're finished. Let's wrap it up, make it a video, and off we go. All right. It works 9 times out of 10, but that one time the person has a little bit of a network hiccup, you got to reset everything and do it again. I could obviously set all the data on my software, my streaming software's end, and then send the data to YouTube, but so much easier to do it on YouTube because it has this really cool button called reuse settings. So yeah, one click and I can at least set this up. But what happened? Literally just internet issues. That's all it is. The ISPs that we have access to where I live, we have exactly one that has decent enough internet to allow me to stream like this. However, they are very, very well known for their absolutely garbage service. That's pretty much the way it goes. If you guys heard about it, because this happened back over, I think it was the early summer. I know it happened over the summer. I can't remember if it was early or midsummer. But a large part of Ontario, Canada, lost internet, just gone, because Rogers, one of the big 2 ISPs that are here, because we have 2, it's a duopoly, they had a error on their end, and it crashed internet access for a large amount of people. Also, banks, lots of stores, all sorts of things just stopped working because of this. They got a slap on the wrist, no real punishments. They swore up and down they'd fix all their issues and it wouldn't happen again. But they still deliver subpar service because they can get away with it. It's a duopoly. You either pick them or the other guy. But as we don't have access to the other guy at our house, we are at the mercy of Rogers. You never want to be at the mercy of your ISP because they can just do whatever they want. Anyhow, with that out of the way, let's get back to where we left off, which was looking at this mobile suit. So, as I was saying here, this really boils down to that last line, the squad continuously heals % armor at a time. If this is a good duration, if it is like, 5-6 seconds, this makes it very worth running this skill. A+ pierce, A power, even though it's not like a double S or anything, the fact it gives a 49% melee attack boost on top of a heal, it makes it very, very good. It just boils down to how good is that heal? That's what That's what matters here. And unfortunately, without access to it, can't test it to find out. But that's pretty much what it comes down to. High mobility Gundam type word tags, again, workable tertiaries. Moving along here to the next part, our backpack. I hope they replace flat heal traits with % like this. So, yes, I know what you mean. It's just, it's weird because like all of the major EX skills that have a heal do, heal 50% of your squad or whatever. And I was like, huh? And I was, oh yeah, right. Gradually heal 100 armor or something. Yeah, if those change to, gradually heal 5% of your armor every now and again, beautiful. That is a powerful trait. But when it's like, recover 250 armor, that's nothing. That's nothing. Yeah, no, I know, Kyle. All right, so backpack, dark matter blades, A+ pierce, B+ power. That was the second skill we saw where it just kind of busts him out and starts swinging away after doing that gap closer. So first of all, It is a gap closer, meaning it has a lot of viability there alone. Going to be relatively hard to whiff, as the gap close relies on getting close, hitting them, forcing them into a stagger, and then into the flow of the skill itself. So that does reduce a lot of the, is it easy to whiff? No. However, it should be noted, a lot of these skills that have you dash from point A to point B that are not bindable, which is noticeable because this skill lacks the bindable tag in the top right of the skill window, means during your dash, you are able to, on average, be interrupted. Which means typically, 9 times out of 10 you're going to land this skill, but that 1 time out of 10 is going to be a whiff. Unless this is one of the very few non-bindables that has iframes. It's very difficult judging these skills when you have no idea, frankly. Like, we don't know any of the information on these. We just gotta guess. Yeah, well, welcome to GBM. It's a gambling game in all aspects. A+ Pierce, B+ Power. Just on those alone, very powerful. Beyond that, raise your melee attack by 24%. That is a very high modifier for a single skill. Definitely in line with the higher end of single, like self-buffing skills for this kind of stuff. Overall, yeah, for what it is, low cooldown, melee attack boost, pierce power, solid. The fact that it does have its own gap close definitely assists with making it really nice because, again, harder to whiff. All right. High mobility for base. I've already talked about the 4 line of tags. High mobility, workable. Cool stuff. So the Dark Exia, or the Exia Dark Matter, I should say it in its right order. The frame looks very good. It does pack a lot of punch. Some healthy traits, some nice EX skills on there. Yeah, no real complaints. Nothing jaw-dropping, like you need to get this kind of part. It's okay though. Alright, let's check out its dual blades. Yeah, Prominence Blade and Bionicle Blade. Let's go. Shot attack down 30%, buff EX skill effect up 35%. Super straightforward. You do 30% less shot attack, or you have 30% less shot attack, which does a lot more in the long run. Percentages hurt. Buff EX skill effect up 35%. Again, flat addition on buffs, so powerful. 49% plus 35%. That's what, 84%. Good slapper. 55% chance of attacks penetrating super armor. Super armor is when you hit the opponent and they do not stagger. That is available for players as well under the chance to not recoil. That's the specific wording for it. This gives you a effective 1 in 2 chance of forcing the enemy to stagger if they have super armor on. Obviously math doesn't work exactly like that, especially with, percentage probabilities, but on average, that's what's going to happen. You may get 5, 6, 7 swings in a row where it doesn't stagger them at all, and then, all of a sudden you can't stop staggering them and they're just crying. But that's how probability works. It sucks. First trait, I personally don't find too useful. I don't find super armor to be a big deal. Typically, things die before super armor becomes an issue. Plus, it doesn't work on certain enemies regardless. So, yeah, there's that to consider. Shot attack down 30%. Again, if you're running this on a melee suit, this is not even a demerit. So, melee suit like this. Shot attack, no shot. The buff EX skill effect up. It's a good trade-off. Melee does have a lot of good buffs available for it, so this can just, give those a little more go-go juice. I'm just not so sure about that first trait, Alright, and then it obviously had the high mobility close combat, which makes sense for a pair of dual blades. Alright, let's take a look at our Dark Matter Rifle. Okay. Well, trait. Read 'em and weep. After 5 seconds pass, enemy melee damage plus 50%. Nice. While high mobility, melee power boosted by 50%. Perfect! So, this is what I was talking about earlier with the battle formula and the different buff types. This has one of each buff type available in it. Now, one thing to keep in mind where it says after 5 seconds pass, if you're running this in arena, typically the amount of time it takes between you spawning, the warning going off, and it showcasing all of the enemy suits you're going to be fighting against will work out to, I believe it's 3.6 seconds or so, maybe a little more than that. but around that ballpark number. With that in mind, you have approximately 1 second before your melee damage gets spiked up 50%, and if you have high mobility, that's another 50%. And like I said, as these are both different parts of the battle formula, this will do a lot of extra damage that it really shouldn't be doing because of the, melee power boosted and enemy melee damage plus. A very, very solid rifle, especially for a melee suit, as this takes a relatively useless slot for a melee suit, because this is mostly like a trait buffer or like a little extra bit of melee damage or something, or word tag, holder. These traits, very good. Very, very good. Definitely worth a back slot on a melee suit. High mobility Gundam type tags. Okay. Okay. Yeah, it is kind of funny that the best part of this suit is the ranged weapon. That's kind of ironic. Alright. The GN Shield. While close combat, enemy shooting power reduced by... Is that 90%? Jeez. Yeah, hello. I thought this was a phase shift thing, but here we are. While high mobility, buff EX skill effect up 35%. So, straight up, the close combat 90% shooting power reduction there, that alone makes this a very high demand part for most melee suits. As, oh, do I need to explain it to you why taking away 90% of an enemy shooting power is really good? I hope I don't have to explain that to you. But that's dirty. Especially considering close combat is one of the more well-run tags, tertiary-wise, for melee suits. So, spicy. And high mobility, the buff EX skill effect up. Again, depends on what you're running EX skill-wise, but overall, I think most things are going to be buffs anyway, so this is going to see a lot of mileage. That damage reduction is nuts. Alright, and high mobility, close combat tags. Overall, the Exia Dark Matter is very interesting. Very nice looking traits. EX skills are great. That ranged weapon, though, is something else. That's wow. Anyways. Nice. I think out of all the parts of the Exia Dark Matter, I like the gun the most. However, I wouldn't say any of them is like a must get. If you happen to get the gun from the Dark Matter, there's a very high chance you're going to slot it into your gun slot or even back slot it for the traits. But I wouldn't say it's worth blowing all of your Haro on to get it, Crossbone and Finichia new alts. Of course it's a Crossbone. Alright, well, we'll hit up Crossbone first and go from there. Now, excuse me a minute. I do want to eat some of this before it gets ice cold. That little internet hiccup thankfully bought me a little bit of time to have a few bites. So, I'm still hungry, unfortunately. This happens when you go most of the day without actually eating food. Don't recommend it. I want chicken, not skin. Cursed. Man, this piece of chicken was heckin' anemic. Okay. Back to what we were doing here. Nah, man, not doing ASMR. Again, I'd have to change a lot of settings on my microphone to actually enable it. And, yeah, not feeling it today. I don't know if I'll ever do ASMR, actually. I really enjoy listening to it, but I don't know. Just doesn't seem something up my alley. Damn, chicken's good. Okay. Crossbone Gundam X2, a new permanent alter. We'll start from the head. Long shooter job, long shot attack raise 20%. Very straightforward. We have a ton of long shooter jobs available. Well, I guess long shooter pilots specifically. So that shouldn't be an issue at all. The long shot attack raise 20%. Now, this is a little more kind of iffy. This doesn't refer to shot specifically. This refers to a very specific distance from your enemy doing a neutral shot. If you go back and watch one of the first videos I made on GBM, where I discuss kind of the mechanics of the game, I do bring up the targeting reticle and the distance between you and your opponent and how the reticle changes. You have close range, mid-range, and long range kind of damage brackets for how far you are from the enemy machine. This is referring to when you are at the furthest bracket from your opponent and is classified as a long shot. That is what is being boosted. Only neutral attacks in that bracket. Quite unfortunately, because early on, this will be a boon for some newer players, because you're going to be using a lot of neutrals while you're waiting for your skills to come off cooldown. Once you get to a certain point, though, you're going to be using more skills than you are neutrals, and with that, this will be completely useless. Plus, long range, sometimes, you know, enemies like just kind of closing the gap, and you're not going to get the full benefit of this. So, hit or miss, honestly, Now, the new trait that comes with the alteration, long shooter job, enemy non-EX skill damage plus 50%. So what this means is anything that's not an EX skill, in other words, your neutral attacks, get a 50% damage boost. That does pair very well with the first trait, long shot attack boost. So if you're running a long shooter, which you have to for both of these to activate, you're getting 20% extra damage when you are at a long distance from your opponent shooting at them, on top of a 50% damage increase on that same attack. For new players, this is very, very powerful, but as you get further in the game, like I said, it's going to drop off because you're going to be using more EX skills than anything. Cool. Alright, let's take a look at the torso. Beam gun. Launch rapid fire beam gun shots from your torso. B pierce, A minus power, low medium cooldown. On paper, looks great. I honestly can't remember the animation for the skill. I had to see it in practice. But what it boils down to is, what is the spread of the beam shots? How far do the beam shots go before they despawn? And how many beam shots are actually fired? These three things are very important to know when you're looking at a magazine skill, or sorry, not a magazine skill, but any EX skill, magazine especially. But I'd have to see this in action to really know. As it is an EX skill, I'm going to assume the beam goes across the stage and it's kind of a Gatling Vulcan style thing in the torso. I don't know. On paper, looks good. In practice, there's a lot of what ifs. That's what that means pretty much. I can't really give a definitive yay or nay on it. Arms. The crossbow, or crossbone. X2 arms. Beam ranged weapon reload speed boosted by 20%. Honestly, considering most ranged weapons reload within a couple of seconds after they've been emptied out, a 20% decrease is like maybe, you know, half a second, maybe a second. It's not really worth a trade slot. Beam ranged weapon reload speed boosted by a further 25%. So total 45% if your ranged weapon is a beam weapon, and there's so many of those, that's not even going to be a problem. However, again, 45%, you're really not shaving off a worth it amount of time when you consider what else could be in the slot here, whether it's trades, EX skill, anything. For brand new players, pretty useful because you're going to be using your neutrals a lot. But once you hit a certain point, you're just not really going to be using them anymore. And this falls off hard. Legs. Heat Dagger, A, B+, raise your melee attack by 14%. Now, unfortunately, I believe that is one of the ones that has a very terrible animation that is very easy to whiff, very small range, and very easy to get, you know, knockout of kind of thing. So, dodge. So, backpack. With power attribute self, EX skill piercing boosted by 28%. This refers to the pierce of a EX skill. How much defense and resistance does the skill ignore when damaging the opponent? 28% sounds like a really good number. Quite unfortunately, though, as all other representations of pierce power are with letters and not numbers, we don't actually know what 28% actually does to this. If I have a pierce skill that has A+ and a pierce that has B-, what is the actual difference between the two of these? We have no idea. 28% on paper sounds really good, but, you know, considering we just don't know anything really about Pierce because we still don't have a full battle formula. Yeah. Overall though, 28% is a hefty boost. We have seen it gone higher. Obviously, you know, this isn't a Sokai or limited or anything, so but 28%'s enough. That'll definitely help your hits do a lot more than they normally would, but I don't know if it's worth a trait slot. And this new one, against enemy with advantageous attribute, enemy EX skill damage plus 35%. So you're doing 35% more EX skill damage with advantageous. That's a little limiting, only in the matter that, like, if you're fighting something neutral, right, or you're fighting something that, you know, you're not great against, you don't get that buff. Overall, these two traits, they're not bad. They do have some kind of, like, symbiosis there, or EX skill piercing boost, EX skill damage boost, but the requirements, power attribute, not bad, but does kind of limit you a little bit. And against enemy with advantageous attribute, again, not bad, but there is a little bit of limitation in there. So overall, you know, okay. Not the best combo we've seen, not the worst. High firepower is exclusive. Not a bad backpack in terms of tags. All right, the X2 Shot Lancer, Jovian Stinger, D Pierce, A Power, raise your melee defense by, that's 19%? Yeah. The A Power is nice. The D Pierce is pretty standard for these types of skills, but it doesn't really do too much. Now, normally, I would talk about how it's nice to have a pocket rocket skill with A Power. However, we do see a lot of other low cooldown pocket rocket skills like this with a much higher pierce value. They take a little bit of a hit in the power department, but they have much higher native pierce. What does it actually do at the end of the day? We don't really know. Again, we don't really know the battle formula in and out. However, because of the availability of skills that have, you know, B plus pierce, B power with the same cooldown as this, I think those would probably do a little better in the long run. Plus the extra effectiveness, melee defense up for yourself. Don't get me wrong, it's nice having kind of a self buff, but you should also just not be getting hit. Yeah, you were right. It is melee. So it does have a lot riding on the actual animation itself. If the animation is good, if it's not, if it has some kind of gap close, if it has some kind of way to stop the enemy from escaping easily, good. But it does boil down to the animation as it is a melee skill. On paper, looks nice. In practice, boils down to the animation. At the end of the day, there's better available with a more healthy pierce power split spread, and I don't think the defense buff is really that great considering, you know, we have better available pretty much. The animation's bad? Alright, well that pretty much cements it as a bottom of the ocean with you, buddy. Alright, Beam Zanba. While high firepower, initial EX skill charge boosted by 20%. That's a very standard number to see, so okay. With power attribute, shooting power boosted by 35%. So if you are power attribute with high firepower, you're looking at a shooting power boost of a rather hefty amount, and you get an initial EX skill charge boost, meaning your skills will be off cooldown at the beginning of a match much faster. So with this, chicken, almost done actually. Maybe I'll just finish it. Oop. So the way this works out, pretty much, the high firepower is not difficult to do because that is available on a ton of parts, like I mentioned before. It's powerful enough, easily accessible. With power attribute, your shooting power boost, that does limit you to needing a power suit, which, you know, it's not that hard to do, 5 parts of the power attribute or more. But you do kind of dig yourself into a bit of a rabbit hole there where it has to be a power suit. And you don't always want to run a power suit. It's not terrible. It's not great. If that was also while high firepower, this would be really nice. But with the power attribute, just kind of knock off a little bit of value. But at the end of the day, it's still pretty good. All right, the Xant Buster. With power attribute self, special shot crit rate boosted. So crit rate, not really good in this game at all. Doesn't really do anything of value. Special shot specifically refers to the long shooter and mid shooter job licenses. When you hold down the ranged attack button, for each weapon, there's a different effect. For this gun, as it's classified as a beam rifle, you'll do the wing Gundam pose where you lean back, gun pointing forward, and you'll just let out this big blast. Hits multiple times, pretty hard to, kind of get out of once you get trapped in it. But that's what's called a special shot. Bazooka will fire just a really powerful blast at the enemy's feet after a second of charging, so on. That's a special shot, only available to 2 job licenses. Already, most of the buffs on those are not really that great, and this only boosts the crit rate of the special shot, and crit's just not good to begin with. So this has a lot of issues kind of bogging it down. And the new trait, before 50 seconds pass for effectively the first minute of the match, all enemy cooldown time up. Excuse me. All enemies cooldown time up 23%. Now this one does act a little bit weird. On paper, that sounds really nice. You slap that onto a support suit and you're laughing all the way to the bank. However, in practice, it's a little funky. All enemy cooldown time up 23%. Like, from what I've heard from people that tested this stuff, it boils down to only the suit that has it equipped actually notices the cooldown time increases on AI enemies. And it's like what they're locked onto. It's weird. It's very weird. I get the existence of, increasing the enemy cooldown time to counter the CDR concepts, but I don't know. It's weird. Overall, really, this part completely hinges on the second trait, but yeah, it's okay. I don't know if I'd field it, honestly. On paper, it sounds really good, but I've never seen the cooldown time up stuff really work as intended. All right, just give me a second here. I'm just going to finish this. Perfect. That's one thing I don't have here. Like hand wipes or something. Oh well. It's good stuff. Okay. So let's take a look at the Buster gun. Okay. Long shooter job. EX skill damage taken reduced by 35. That's a flat number. It's practically useless. Against enemy with advantageous attribute, EX skill power boosted by 50%. Now, that second trait packs a lot of punch considering it's the EX skill power 50%. That's highest modifier right there. However, the first trait is effectively a wash, and it only works, and the second trait only works against what you're already advantageous against. You're already doing extra damage. End of the day, not really amazing. Not really amazing. On paper, the second trait looks really good, but in practice, it's just so eh. And lastly, the ABC Cloak, the standard for the Crossbone series. With power attribute, enemy shooting power reduced by 30%. So Do keep in mind this only refers to the suit that this part is actually equipped onto. If you have this equipped on one of your secondary machines in arena, so one that you are not controlling, your suit will not get 30% reduction on the enemy shooting power, but if they shot whoever had this part on, they'd notice the effect. So it's a very limited use kind of thing. That's pretty much what that boils down to. And when beam damage taken, enemy shooting power reduced by 45%. Pretty much beam damage is getting reduced really hard here. It comes off as a very defensive cloak, but because it only works for whoever it's actually put on and not like your entire squad, is a very selfish defensive piece, which makes sense. You know, it's a shield. However, it's wholly focused on you being power, the damage being beam, and it only reduces shooting damage coming in. It makes sense canonically, considering what the cloak actually does. But I think it kind of falls into that pocket of it requires a lot of very specific circumstances to really be good. And you don't have a lot of control of that when you're playing this game, when you're playing, you know, arena or whatnot. So mileage may vary on that. All right. Very interesting. And lastly, our good old Fenice, and then we can wrap up and everyone can go and do whatever. Well, not 100% true. There's some stuff I want to talk about after the stream, my regular kind of post-stream rambles, if anyone wants to hang out for that. Anyways, Wing Gundam. Head-mounted Vulcan, D- Pierce, D power. This is universally a bad EX skill. They tried to make it better by forcing stagger after X amount of bullets hit. However, overall, this is not good. There's just so much better you can put into this slot than a Vulcan skill, frankly. Torso. Machine Cannon, D Pierce, B plus power, 7 magazine. So this is one of those scenarios where this suit really does show its age. 7 magazine is on the low end when it comes to on the magazine scale. Now, do keep in mind, when magazine EX skills were first brought into the game, they typically had a magazine size of 4 or 5, and then when you had them fully maxed out, they were at 7 or 8. And then with alterations, this kind of bumped up to 11, which made them way more powerful. However, this suit not only has D Pierce, where we normally see magazine skills sitting around, you know, B Pierce, B plus Pierce kind of thing on average. It's a D piercing on this one. Power is only B plus, which kind of runs in line with most, if not all, other alternated magazine skills. So pretty much you're suffering a smaller magazine and lower pierce than the overwhelming average of other magazine skills that get altered. Okay. If you like the Fenice, go for it. If you don't, you're really not missing out too much here. All right. The arms integrated with shield. Verd Fenice, A minus power, D pierce, very low cooldown here. After readying a rapier and charging, send it flying with your cloaked fist. So based on the text, it seems to have some kind of minor gap close, if not a dashing gap close. On paper, A minus power, D pierce is very standard. Low cooldown. On paper looks good. In practice, I have no idea. It really comes down to the animation, as I keep saying, for these kinds of skills. So without seeing that, I can't really make any final judgment calls on this. But on paper, looks fine. Not great, not bad, fine. Legs, Meteor Hopper. Oh, I remember when this was like the big deal for shot machines for a while. All right, S power, D pierce, cutscene cooldown, bindable. Raise shot attack of your squad by 49%. Very high modifier for what this suit is, a ticketable 4-star suit. S power, that is really nice to see on a ticketable 4-star suit. Ace is there. And it's bindable, so cutscene. Overall, that's a very, very bog standard leg EX skill. If you lack one, this can fit in your slot no problem. Obviously, there's better available, but at the end of the day, for what this is, for how available it is, and how easy it is to max out, very good. All right, let's check out the backpack. I said backpack. There we go. Okay. When attacking with beam, EX skill piercing boosted by 28%. Okay. So we've talked about EX skill piercing before. This is just, you need to be using beam for it, for what that's worth. With technique attribute self, debuff EX skill effect up 30%. We've already talked about kind of how the buff effect up works. Debuff is literally the same. If it's going to debuff somebody, just add 30% flat to it here. The technique attribute does kind of restrict exactly how useful this is going to be, considering the first trait is just when attacking with beam. Okay. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of the EX skill piercing boosts. I'm not a huge fan of the debuff EX skill effect up either. I work with the mentality of buff yourself and just finish them off before they can do anything. But mileage may vary. You do you. If this works with your build, go right ahead and use it. Yeah. Beam Saber. Or Beam Rapier. When armor is 70% or less, strong melee crit rate boosted by 30%. Crit rate useless. While for Desert, EX skill cooldown reduced by 23%. I've already talked about how I feel about the 4 line. The EX skill effect cooldown reduction, though, does sit at a very high, if not the highest modifier. Second highest, I'm pretty sure. So that's solid enough. The first trait, though, is a complete wash, so you're literally investing into this for that second trait, for if that's worth it to you. And lastly, our Buster Rifle Custom. With technique attribute, special shot crit rate boosted by 30%. Crit rate's a wash. Middle shooter job, super available. Like, there's a lot of mid shooters. Squad job gauge rate plus 20%. I've already talked about the job gauge. To me, this is useless, but again, if it's your jam, it's your jam. I just think that first trait is a complete wash, not worth investing in this part at all for because of it. But if you really, really, really like that second trait and you must need it, okay, power to you. Overall, between the two of them, I think the Fenice saw less overall improvements, but its legs got a real buff to it. The crossbone was very meh. It's pretty much all it boiled down to at the crossbone for me. I barely remember any of the parts individually now. If that lets you know exactly how much of an impression it left on me. There seems to be a discount on special Haro packs. Huh. Let me see here. It is Thanksgiving coming up in America, if I remember correctly, so that kind of runs in tide with this. Of course, Canadians didn't get any such bonus because Canada, but what can you do? Huh. Then we have our Thanksgiving item set in here. Do keep in mind the prices that you see here are in Canadian, not American, so make sure you do keep that in mind when doing your own currency conversions. And yes, the Canadian dollar sucks. Alright. Honestly, those aren't terrible sales. Like, those are pretty in line with what you normally expect. Cool stuff. Okay. Well, with that, the GBM content wrap-up is done here. We've gone over all the new suits, the new gacha content, all that fun stuff. Now, for anyone that was just here for GBM, thanks for tuning in, hanging out, and whatnot. I'll be wrapping up this here and moving on to other discussion topics briefly. I'll see you in a couple of weeks for the next GBM drop if we don't see some kind of weird Black Friday or Thanksgiving emergency banner, in which case I'll be doing a stream. So, thanks for tuning in there. For anyone that wants to hang around and chat just a little bit afterwards, as I seem to be doing more and more often with these streams, I feel like I'm doing a catch-up for you guys, talking about stuff that's happened in the last couple of weeks. So, poor value for the item set, roll your premium. You don't tell me what to do, Alex. I'm not going to roll my premium just to spite you. Any word on SD Eternal? It's been a while since beta closed. So, even if there was news about SD Eternal, I wouldn't be able to talk about it if I knew. That's just an unfortunate side effect of everything. I can tell you that I am unbelievably excited to actually sit down and play it, considering I got shafted in the CBT. Still mad about that. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I hope it comes out soon. Now, okay, I mentioned this yesterday, not to any of you guys. I was talking to somebody else about it. But if you have Steam, I assume most of you do, there's currently a Bandai Namco sale going on, or at least there was over the weekend. When I opened it to take a look, almost front and center for me as I'm scrolling through it is the GBO2 test. And I'm just, or the GBO2 client. I'm sitting there and I'm like, when are we getting news about this? I really want to know. I really want the game. That sums up that. No, I don't have any pocket news or anything. I just really want it. I wish my PS4 wasn't fried so I could play the damn thing. Anyways, stuff I wanted to talk about outside of GBM. So, a request. The new Gundam arrived in Gundam Evo. Personal thoughts. So, that's a very interesting suit. I don't know if that would have been my first choice to add into the game. Granted, I understand why they did it. It is very iconic. It's a relatively popular suit. It looks sleek. And it does add a little bit more of the bit game to evolution, because that's kind of one of the things I've noticed a severe lack of is, you know, there's not a lot of bits. And considering Gundam is, I'm not going to say known for it, because there's definitely other series that do it way more, a lot more Atano Circus style things. I will say that bits are very married to the Gundam name. With that in mind, well, bits and funnels in general and Dragoons, but the concept, I should say. With that in mind, I see why they added the new Gundam. In terms of what do I think about its actual performance and everything, honestly, I would have to actually sit down and use it to give you any information that's worth listening to. Because one thing to keep in mind with this game is it's very hard, well, evolution, I should say. It's very hard to tell whether or not something's going to be good until you've actually seen it in action. Case in point, the Melee Zaku. No one really expected it to be that good, and then as soon as people started unlocking it and using it, it was like, oh wow. If we had been shown demo footage of it, we wouldn't have known exactly how busted it was until it spun into our team and, 6v1. Then we're like, wow, this is really powerful. So I want to kind of reserve my input on the new Gundam until I actually see it used in pubs, I see it actually used often, maybe try it out myself, get a feel for it. But it looks clean, it looks sleek, has some really cool stuff on it. That's my, first impressions glance. So beyond that, let's see here. Right, the new Pokemon games. I know a lot of people have been talking about those for obvious reasons on the internet. Myself, I actually did try it. I played Violet through, got to the post game. Overall, I found it a very fun experience. I found that I did enjoy the open world aspect that it tackled, which is very neat for one of the mainline games. I do hope that they do a little more polish on their next entry, though, because Violet had a lot of promise and a really good foundation, but it was ruined by the very poor materials they used to build it up from there. They should definitely think about doing a proper scaling system for dungeons and content, so you have a gym leader or a boss or something, and what you do is you set up brackets for them. So you have like a 5 to 10 bracket, 10 to 15, 15 to 20, and so forth, and all the way up to, let's say, level 60. And in those brackets, they have different Pokemon with different moves or whatnot. And that way, when the player's exploring and doing their own jam and they stumble into this challenge, it's actually leveled properly to them, and there's actually a form of difficulty. As it stands right now, if you play the game, even though it gives you the promise of an open world and you can tackle this in any way you want, there is still a very forced linearity to it. Because if you go, for example, straight up north into the mountains because you really like ice-type Pokemon or dragons or whatever, and you're like, I gotta get me some of that, you're gonna get your stuff just absolutely stomped in because everything is like level 35, 40 plus, and the gym leaders are all like level 50, and they will just remove you from the face of the planet. And I feel like they've made a couple of steps forward with how they allow players to approach their games, but even though they took a couple of steps forward, they still took like 10 steps back because they just kept cutting content, cutting old stuff, great ideas that they've implemented in other games just gone. And it's like, I don't really get it from like the perspective of someone that develops software. Why would you create something that people love and then go, all right, we're gonna make a sequel and remove everything that people loved? I get they don't have to make good games because the existence of the video games and the anime is to push the merchandise, 'cause that's where all the money from Pokemon comes from. But have some self-respect, guys. Come on. GBO2 PC test bombed so hard they had to scrap what they had and rebuild it for PC. Hey, you know what? At the end of the day, if they release GBO2 with like a more modern PC engine, I'm up for it, man. I doubt it though, because they got to make it mirror what's already available on console, but be neat. Connection issues hit the PS4 regularly. It's going to be a nightmare on PC. So I think that boils down to how they decide to handle servers. If they decide to do peer-to-peer, it's going to be an absolute shitfest because you're going to have a lot of people with crappy connections hosting games. But it costs a lot of money to run server architecture to support multiplayer games properly. So I don't think there's really a good answer to it besides cross our fingers and hope that their network optimizations actually fix problems. My biggest gripe is people who quit mid-match because mid-match is invalid bad if you were winning. Yeah. Evolution has a good handful of problems. It is what it is. But this is Gundam. They have the money. So yes and no. They definitely have the money, but is it going to be worth investing in all of the server architecture and the networking code to host all of these servers for a game that's extremely niche and will probably have a fall-off audience? A lot of people will pick it up and play it during the first few weeks because it's free to play and it's brand new, but very quickly they're going to be turned off because GBO2 appeals to a very specific type of player. It's slow, it's meaningful movement, it has impact. But a lot of people prefer, especially these days, people prefer quick, snappy, arcadey. Where's my power slide? Why can't I climb walls? You know, why am I not able to move 700 feet per second? Ah! Right? That's the kind of gameplay people are used to because of Apex, Call of Duty, all these other games that have come out where it's all, you know, high octane shooting. And then you got GBO2, which is much more methodical, much more strategic. And I don't think that's going to appeal to a lot of people. And it's going to see like a high surge at the beginning and then drop off and stay nice and stable with that fan base that likes that type of game, that likes Gundam. So, yeah. Beyond that, let's see here. Outside of Gundam, oh yeah, I downloaded and tried Neural Cloud. So far, I'm enjoying it. It's a very casual game, very little interaction needed. I do wish they had a proper sweep system, though, instead of this auto where it plays out the match for you. It should, if you've aced a map, frankly, it should let you just clear it without having to actually play it. But hey, you know what? At least it's quick and snappy with its 2x speed, so I guess I can only complain so hard about it. The graphics look great. One of my big gripes with it, though, and I found this kind of interesting, mind you. So, when you start Neural Cloud, it gives you a handful of characters to start with, like most mobile games do. One of the default characters you get has a live 2D home screen image, and that is what you are defaulted with when you start. However, this character is a base rarity SR, so a 2-star unit, and from what I see, there's no other character in the game currently with an L2D, not even the 3 stars. There is only one character that comes with a base L2D skin. And I'm intrigued by the decision there, all things considered. But what do I know? Neural Cloud, yeah. So Neural Cloud is a game by Mika. They're the ones that made Girls Frontline, GFL. Neural Cloud takes place, if I remember correctly, around chapter 10 of GFL. It's like an interlude side story thing, and they fleshed it out into a full game. It plays... I'm not quite sure how to describe the gameplay. It's very interesting. It's like auto chess, maybe? Not 100% sure how to describe it. But it is very simple, very straightforward. Yeah, I'm gonna hold a lot of my review on it until I've played it for a week or two, just because you never know how generous a game is until you've kind of bottomed out its free currency and everything else. But we'll see as I get closer. Let's see, Neural Cloud. Tower of Fantasy. I've been playing that on and off here and there. Lynn dropped earlier today. I managed to roll her A5, and I got all of her matrices. She's ridiculous. She's single-handedly carrying my entire comp. So that was fun. Beyond that, I don't think there's really a ton. Let me check my Steam games really quick. Did I pick up anything else? The weeks tend to blur together these days. No, still just Harvestella on there. Auto chess is the term most generally used. Yes. Okay, cool. So I'm not absolutely crazy. Beyond that, yeah, it's just right now it's lots of waiting for Eternal because I'm excited for that to play it and kind of get used to it. I'm trying out Neural Cloud as that dropped, and I'm kind of enjoying it. I've been playing PGR a bunch. I got a couple of new people into it. Good stuff. Yeah, I think that pretty much sums up kind of the recap for the last couple of weeks. I spent lots of time with Harvestella right into the new Pokemon games, which they were fun, but left a little bit of disappointment in me. Neural Cloud as soon as the Pokemon stuff wrapped up, and now here we are. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Anyways, I'm gonna wrap up, guys. It is, yeah, well, it's 20 to 12. Yeah, I am tired. It is late. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Thanks for hanging out. I will be back, like I said earlier, in 2 weeks for the next content drop, or earlier if there's a special banner like a Black Friday sale or something. Expect an emergency stream in that scenario. Beyond that, yeah, fun stuff. Thanks for tuning in, hanging out, guys. Peace out, and I will see you all in the next one.